Good evening. Hello, my name is Dwayne Valkmerg, and welcome to this week's Square Table organized by Dornuria and ISACA, the Dutch chapter from the Netherlands. For this week, we have a presentation from a speaker from Spain, from Madrid, who will be giving a presentation regarding managing IT healthcare during a pandemic. And I myself, and probably others, also are very interested in about the impact that a pandemic has on an IT health organization. Our this week's speaker is Ivan Sanchez Lopez. He is a CISO at a healthcare organization, leading healthcare organization in Spain. And I would like to give the words to Ivan. Ivan, welcome and thanks for this.
Welcome. Thanks, Dwayne. Thanks, everyone, for the invitation. Just, a pleasure to be with all of you here today and for the opportunity of sharing a little bit of what have we been doing in the last during the last year. I'm going to share my screen now. You should be able to see that.
Yes.
Yeah, so I said, thank you for the opportunity. I think healthcare has been in the midst of this pandemic situation, while pressure on IT and cybersecurity in our sector became really intense. So today's session is a personal reflection on everything that we have lived, and I hope to get some Q&A at the end. So just on me personally, said by Dwayne, I'm Chief Information Security Officer for Sanitas Europe and LATAM, which is part of Bupa Group, which is a global British multinational provider of healthcare and insurance services worldwide. I have more than 30 years experience in information security, being in different sectors, and all the certifications that cost a fortune to renew on a yearly basis. I'm sure you know the story, but definitely pays off. So my objective for today, the session topics I wanted to touch, basically I want to share a little bit on the healthcare industry overview, because before COVID, the industry was on a very interesting transformation moment. Definitely, the pandemic has given us some other challenges. I wanted to share as well how this disruption is affecting all the sector, the evolution of the threat model. I think lots of you probably have heard about the different attacks that different hospitals and companies have suffered. I want to show the different line that took us to the current model, and how Sanitas has responded after to this model, and how the regulation and some pillars for effective healthcare security. So a little bit on the healthcare market overview. So global market for private healthcare is rising. Just before the pandemic was expected to reach to have this 4.7 trillion US dollars, and it's projected to have the revised side of 7 trillion. Right, so it's definitely a global market, a booming market, which for 2027, the US market only 1.3 trillion by itself, and China on the rise for 1.6 trillion, because there is a demand in growing countries on private healthcare. As you can imagine, as the countries get more developed and population it's an aging population with more financial, let's say, resources, they look for private healthcare options, right? This is an aggregated growth over 9% on a yearly basis. Again, with China the rise with more than 10%. Europe, it's lower growth, because our starting point is different, but definitely few sectors have continuous growth of more than 4%. So there's definitely something happening. How the COVID has impacted this business, this industry? Well, of course, has created a lot of pressure on the business, but business-wise has had a positive impact because it helps us to open new business models. We'll talk a little bit about that. It helps us to accelerate our transformation, and again, incremental growth. So in that sense, unfortunately, many sectors across the world have suffered a very negative impact in terms of labor, workforce, and of course profits or revenues. Definitely not for healthcare. So a little bit on the Bupa Group. What is the Bupa Group and what we do? So again, not sure if you know, but it's a British multinational. We have presence in a number of countries through 4 market units, which is Australia, New Zealand, United Kingdom, our kind of traditional market, Europe and LATAM, and other markets, which is basically a number of joint ventures we have all around the world. So it's a relatively big presence. So we have a very, I would say, quite comprehensive overview of the healthcare industry across the globe, and we serve more than 33 million customers. It's definitely a challenge because when you think about a global player in healthcare, it's difficult to find just one. Healthcare provision model is very local. I would say not even regional. It's even more local than regional. And yeah, there are some US-based multinationals, but again, it's difficult to find a global player, which is probably something that we will see that changing in the near future, because we have seen this a growing market and investment funds and entering the market, and probably some movements that will consolidate some sectors. How this translate to the Spanish market? Because again, as it is very local, it's probably quite different compared with what you know in the Netherlands or the European countries. So basically, it's a model which is 100% financed by governmental taxes, and it has a good coverage, at least for primary and specialized medicine. There is a model as well for subsidized medicines. In terms of the provision, there's a dedicated network of public hospitals and a good perception in terms of the population. However, there are some handicaps, some issue, which is it's a very bureaucratic model, and we have 17 regions in Spain, and each region they have a very specific, very own healthcare network, let's say, and these links, well, basically it's aging population and chronic disease growth, because that's something we have seen. While at same time the population, it's an aging population, we see increase on chronic disease growth, which force us to change a little bit our business model. So that's a bit of the context. The industry is a growing industry, but of course has been disrupted. Which has helped to disrupt it? Well, I'm not sure if you have seen this any time, Twitter or something. That's very kind of funny and very true. Especially even more true in the healthcare industry. Definitely CEOs, CTOs, CIOs, CDOs, call it whatever, have been pushing for digital transformation in the last, 3, 4, 5 years. But definitely COVID was on after and before in terms of the disruption in the industry. And which, why? Well, probably we were lacking. We are at the bottom of different transformations because the healthcare provision business is very intensive in human capital, as said. It's a people-based business. We have people to treat people, which forces us to have, expenditures and a very capex, let's say, based model, subject in some cases to this government bureaucracy. Therefore, there has not been much appetite in the last years, as I said before COVID, for digital investment. Things like IT obsolescence, IT strategy, and some others have been definitely unknown topics for many companies in the healthcare industry. It's strange because again, it's a profitable business, a profitable model, but again, there was not much appetite for that. But again, until now, because all the changes in technology, all the acceleration, all the changes in consumer demands, users, consumer, patients demand from us services that are nearer to them, digital means, mobile, web-based, etc. And of course, the health predictions in a post-COVID environment have pushed us in a radical transformation. Some of the trends in this radical transformation was big data and machine learning for predictive health. The number of data that are managed in the healthcare industry is massive. We'll see that soon. It's massive. Before, we didn't have either the appetite or maybe we didn't have even the technology for managing those, but it is now there. So big data and machine learning are becoming now very common in the healthcare industry. So you can imagine the regulation implication that it has, right? And of course, the business opportunity in terms of predictive health. Another trend is wearable medical devices. Again, wearables were probably very futuristic things 10, 15 years ago, but not anymore. I mean, pretty sure you know the latest versions of the Apple Watch and some other devices can make you ECGs and some other tests on real time. So the challenge is, how can we integrate those devices that are linked, attached physically to our patients to provide them real-time medical services? There are very interesting proposals and companies in that sense. Another one is video consultations and virtual reality. Well, virtual reality is probably, we are still not there, but video consultations is definitely a thing that has arrived, let's say, probably forever. Just for you to know, in Sanitas, we were providing around 150 to 100 video consultations on a daily basis before COVID. We had a product for video consultations since probably 3-4 years, but again, those were the numbers, so relatively low numbers. So there was a discussion at which point it makes sense to keep the platform, but then COVID came, and we went from these 150 to 100 on an average to more than 3, 4, 5. We reached peaks of 5,000 video consultations per day, because imagine a total lockdown, patients want to get consultations with their doctors, and of course can't move or do not want to drive to the near hospital for the COVID risk. So again, that's something that's changing completely the industry. There are few companies, healthcare companies, that do not offer video consultation today. And remote patient monitoring, again, it links pretty much with the wearable devices. Devices for remote patient monitoring used to be very, very expensive. Now it's a reality, and it's really affordable for companies to provide devices for chronic diseases, remote monitoring. Another is interoperability. That's the digital trend that we are living, because our customers demand interoperability between different actors in the industry. There are a number of standards, and governments are pushing for electronic health records interoperability. We are not yet there. We don't have something that we could say our digital healthcare ID, that it can be interoperated through different countries. But believe me, there are many working groups that are working in that direction. So we might see that in the future. So all in all, these trends are kind of disrupting the digitally the healthcare industry. And which role plays the information security here? Well, I said traditionally overlooked. Digital transformation has been overlooked. Information security definitely overlooked in those environments. There was a huge dependency of third-party equipment. So a hospital, the 20, 30 years ago hospital to today's or tomorrow hospital are completely different. They are more similar to a data center now than they were, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago. There are plenty of connected devices all around the hospital. And there's a huge dependency of those devices, which normally haven't built proper security by default principles. So you can imagine you have lots of devices, unsecure devices, legacy obsolete devices, and of course not subjected to regular updates. Culturally, it has been a very traditional industry where privacy was a topic, but not really cybersecurity, right? With a very low investment. So again, it was a need to completely rethink our approach to information security. Because the value, as I mentioned before, the value of healthcare data is immense. So private healthcare information, as said, is estimated 5 to 8 times more valuable than financial data. There are other studies from Allianz and some other insurers that say it could be more than 20 times valuable than financial data, because financial data are, they can change. If you get your credit card data, I don't know, leaked, definitely not a nice thing to have, but you will get another credit card data issued, right? But if you get your healthcare data in a data breach, I don't think you can really change your healthcare data. That's what defines you, right? And actually, there are some very interesting studies from EY, as you can see there, that said patient data is a desirable intangible asset. This comes it's an extract from the report link at the bottom. They have estimated that the value that the National Health Services in the UK, if they wanted at any point in time to monetize that, those data they manage could be valued as much as £5 billion per annum. So that's only the National Health Service in the UK. So, and different studies, like the Transwave Global Security Report, show that the number, the costs and the value of the healthcare records are incredibly high compared with other data like financial data. So definitely it's a transformational moment. Digital and security traditionally overlooked, but with vast amount of data and very valuable data. So this basically triggers some interests. So you have all these components for, let's see, well, what has happened? Maybe it's an interesting target. So it comes to 2015. So 2015 was again before COVID. We have our pre-COVID, our digital COVID in healthcare, which was in 2015. It was the year of data breaches. So in the US, very big companies, insurers like Anthem, Excelus, or Premera suffer a number of data breaches, which were more on the APT side of things rather than ransomware, as we will see soon, right? But there was more than 100 million healthcare records affected and leaked. So you can imagine there was really a shake, a call to action before COVID in the healthcare industry. So the bad guys tried and say, this looks interesting. That's an interesting sector. There's value there. Let's see what happens next. So there comes this that I'm pretty sure you know what it is, right? This very interesting screen about WannaCry. So WannaCry, May 2015, affect a number of industries all around the globe. Very hard in Spain. Actually, Telefónica, our national biggest telecommunications company, was severely affected. But it was not so known that the healthcare industry got a massive impact. So in the UK, the NHS, it was really a chaos where a number of hospitals and medical centers were shut down. As you can see in the map for Great Britain, it comes from a report from the National Audit Office in the UK, kind of what went wrong and why WannaCry hit them so badly in the UK. Very interesting report. It's 35 pages and really interesting again to understand. And that revealed that the very basic practices were not taken into consideration. Things like, as mentioned before, things like basic security investment, hygiene controls, secure configurations, obsolescence, etc., etc. And yeah, even in Dutch hospitals that affected them. So again, it was something that WannaCry, again, as a global massive impact, it hit very especially on healthcare. So 2015, 2017. So the thing is, well, it's a vulnerable sector, let's say, with a growing sector, very valuable data, and you know what the bad guys are looking after, right? They are looking for monetizing their attacks. So these are what the guys were thinking. Let's go for it. And that's a profitable business model that comes with ransomware. And in the last 2-3 years after WannaCry, a very large number of healthcare institutions has suffered ransomware incidents. And unfortunately, a number of them paid. More than the ones that have been advertised have actually paid. I said unfortunately because I hope you agree that paying is not the solution. But in some cases, well, maybe one can understand why they paid. But the numbers are really scary because just for the news we know, which again, they are definitely not everyone that paid ransom, there are millions here. There are millions. So hospitals, again, in the US paying more than $600,000, et cetera, right? So definitely a profitable business model that went a bit, let's say, uncontrolled. This reaches 2019 and 2020. The objective of the bad guys in the healthcare industry became so wide that they basically started to produce very severe impact. Very severe impact. Very interestingly to see what happened in France earlier this year, again, while dealing with the pandemic, where the French minister, and actually Emmanuel Macron, the president, issued an order for more than 1 billion euros investment in the ANSSI, National Cybersecurity Agency, is focused specifically to reinforce security in healthcare, in the healthcare system. But happened as well in the Czech Republic, again, at the very beginning as well, the COVID outbreak with very severe impact. Even, well, you see that in Spanish, apologies for that, but that affected us. So Hospital de Torrejón, Torrejón is a city in Madrid, in the region, and that was a part of the Sanitas group in Spain. And actually that's very interesting because it's a public hospital that is managed privately by Sanitas. We suffer an incident there, RIUC, basically. But what really becomes very, very scary is the last news you see there, which is in Düsseldorf, in the Unikliniken hospital, a patient died after a ransomware attack because an old woman was about to get a treatment, surgery, because they couldn't execute that surgery. They they tried to, the systems were unavailable. They tried to move that person to another hospital. That person died during the move. So again, it became really uncontrolled. It became so uncontrolled that in a very rare statement, a number of ransomware groups promise not to hit hospitals, at least during the pandemic. Groups like,
Ivan,
sorry, yeah,
I'm seeing a question from Mark Appelman.
Yeah.
Mark, if you're willing, you're able to ask your question directly to Ivan.
Yeah, hi Ivan. Good afternoon. Hi. It's a little bit out of context, but does your company consider your software a medical device according to the MDR? And I was curious, the medical device regulation, and does that affect your posture towards these pieces of software, and how does that influence the information security program you run?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's a very good point because that links with what I mentioned before. One of the top risks we identified early in the pandemic was the need of having all those medical devices under control. And we realized that we couldn't. We simply couldn't, because lots of those devices were running obsolete versions of Windows XP, for example, but you can't touch them. You can't simply touch them. You can't upgrade them. You can't patch them. You couldn't simply do nothing. They come from vendors like, well, not to mention a name, but very big healthcare manufacturers. It's not that they don't care about security, but it's simply they deliver you the device and you need to manage with that. What have we? So we consider that in our risk model. Yes. Which measures did we take to reduce that risk? Network segmentation was one of them. Virtual patching was the second of them. There are solutions, again, I don't want to go commercial, but there are a number of solutions that work well. They're not cheap, unfortunately, but provide virtual patching. So even if you can't patch that device, specific device, you can wrap it in a secure, let's say, container. So again, segmentation and virtual patching. So yeah, we consider them. We consider the risk as of today to be within appetite, but we are really concerned about that. One of the things and moves that I hope it will help to boost security is the trend in the European Union, sponsor pushed by ENISA, for product security certification. I'm not sure if you know that, but the ENISA and the European Commission is pushing to get certifications on products in terms of how secure they are. One of the focuses is medical devices.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, in a very rare statement, a number of groups like Conti, Ryuk, Sodinokibi, and some others said, well, we will not attack anymore during the pandemic. So again, it became a little bit uncontrolled. Similarly, I'm not sure if you saw what happened on late on Sunday about this oleoduct in the US, in the East Coast in the US, where the attackers published a statement, not to saying sorry, simply saying it's not personal, it's just business, right? It was the same. So it went a bit uncontrolled. So all in all, healthcare security and COVID was definitely a wake-up call, because all this threat landscape, all these attacks, all the things that were happening became in the very worst moment. That's actually a real image from one of our hospitals. It's crazy. You see how it is in the photo and how it is, let's say, in a normal base. It's completely different. They were collapsed. So they were dealing with that pandemic situation, but there was no chance. But accelerating and working on protecting our crown jewels at the same time. As a sector, we should have acted before, but definitely we need to do it now, because that's a battlefield. That's what we need to protect. That's where our business, let's say, happens. We care about people, and all the medical devices linking to the question before that you guys who see there, they basically bring software, and they are different entry points for a potential attacker. And we have a very important asset to protect, which is human beings, right? Connected through a ventilator, whatever. Imagine what could have happened in case of a ransomware attack while having a medical center, really full of patients. That's an image I find very, I don't know if it's scary or interesting, but again, it was a wake-up call. Sanitas, sorry, it is in Spanish, but it basically it's materiality metrics. That's the different. That's a public document. It comes from an annual corporate report, and these are the risks where we work from a strategic priority, so top right side, right, and have relevance for our business. And seguridad de información, this is the red block there. It's information security. So in Sanitas, we had very, very clear before all the pandemic that information security was a risk that we needed to tackle. And we have a number of things, a number of controls deployed. But again, COVID was definitely a wake-up call to accelerate all the measures we had pending, let's say, to implement. So how we tackle that situation? Again, that comes very personal. That really the experience from the trenches. Well, at the beginning, it was clear that we need to action immediately because with all the pressure in hospitals, there was no appetite at all. It is never appetite for unavailability, but definitely not in such moment. Yeah, but as usual, we can't do everything at the same time. So where to focus? And basically, we perform, okay, given the new threat landscape, ransomware, and some other, we perform a gene controls review, an attack surface review, how the controls are implemented. Something that we do regularly, we accelerated a review on those gene controls. Very important, threat intel, we stay tuned and ensure that we stay connected to everything that was happening in the world in terms of threat intelligence. So we started to plug, let's say, our systems to different threat intel sources, governmental sources, thirds and CSIRTs that were very open to support the healthcare industry during the early stages of the pandemic, and of course ensure proper and 24/7 monitoring, which we had before, but of course we needed to have to ensure that it was properly done. And then we will then evolve, through different phases as the pandemic was evolving, because we didn't know what about to happen. So we defined kind of four phases. So the first one was to ensure the basics. As said, in the various early stages, we say, okay, let's perform a very deep review of our basic controls. Let's ensure that we haven't overlooked anything in the past. Things like multi-factor authentication, absolutely mandatory. It was mandated before, but sometimes for some systems, for whatever, it's difficult to provoke and to get the cultural change and the user education to multi-factor authentication. In that moment in time, there was no chance. We simply needed to do it for all remote access. Same as the network connected devices. As linking with the question before, all these devices connected to our network, we need to ensure that they were compliant. And if not, properly segment them to ensure, at least in that phase, identify them for later go for segmentation. We created dedicated networks for those devices, firewalled, to reduce the risk of contagion. Of course, check that all our security controls, AV and of course EDR, were effectively deployed. Because sometimes in hospital environment, 24/7 availability is an issue always, and deploying of these tools, as you know very well, sometimes produce impacts on systems performance, or you need to perform restarts. It is never a good time to perform a system restart, right? Again, there was no chance here. Ensure the basics, ensure that AV and EDR are effectively deployed all across our endpoints. And being very, very intensive in awareness. In the very early stages, I think all of us, in hospitals of course, but all of us were confused and stressed about everything that was happening. So we need to be very close to our users, being very intense in awareness. For some time, at least for 6 weeks, we had daily, very short messages about the things that were happening in the information security, the things that needed to pay attention. There were a lot of phishing and scam attempts and phishing attempts taking advantage of that stress situation, right? And very operational personnel, like doctors or nurses, sometimes they tend to overlook or they tend to click. So we're very intensive on awareness in the very early stages, just focusing on the basics. And in parallel, we brought Red Team. We activated our external offensive security for executing Red Team and attack surface testing. So say, as we are our objective, we want to get attacked by our offensive team before others do, right? So we ask them to perform continuous attack surface testing. And as mentioned before, when talking about threat intel, we look for support, because as an industry, we are probably not very well connected, because that's a consequence of being a very local business. So we need to look for support. And there are several cross-EU initiatives. For example, Netherlands, it was really a very good example. They had an initiative called We Help Hospitals. And basically, the Dutch authorities, if you're a hospital or medical center, you could just get for free support. There were many suppliers or many technology providers that gave temporary but licenses for free, allowed the hospitals to plug to threat intel sources, all for free. So we look for support as well to see what was happening over there. So that was the very first phase, ensure the bases are covered. As this progress and we enter into May, we say, okay, well, this looks that this will take some time. This pandemic looks like it will not go away soon. So from phase one, all the weak points we have spotted, which were a number of them, we need to accelerate all the remediation. So we activated all the teams to deal with all the remediations.
Sorry for the interruption. We have another question from Hero Zoutendijk.
Yes, hi Ivan, Hero here. So I have a question, because you just spoke about cyber threat or threat intelligence. And my question is, because you asked for support, are you a member of Health ISAC? And are you using their intelligence combined with others for your defense?
Yes, we interestingly, we were originally members of the FS ISAC, because as we have, we are private healthcare insurer, but we provide healthcare services. By some reason, we were put in the FS ISAC. I know the H ISAC. I don't know if it's very recent or a 4 years, but they were very silent. But I know in the last probably, well, definitely COVID help, they are now growing immensely. So we are still, as an organization, member of ISAC. Again, don't ask me why, but we wanted, and it's recognized at group level, that we want to be members of H ISAC.
That's very interesting. Last comment about it, because indeed, Health ISAC is not only helping pharmaceuticals and medical device companies, but also providers and also health insurance companies. So something that you should look to. And if you want to know more, you can always reach out to me as well. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. No, absolutely. And that's something that as an industry in healthcare, I think financial services industry, they have been extremely good, and our telecommunications company, again, they have been extremely good at being connected within them, sharing. But healthcare, again, probably as a consequence of being very local businesses, we have been very bad. We have not, let's say, we have not been open, or we have not been connected to each other. And there is only benefits of having connected. Again, Health ISAC and some other initiatives from, we'll talk later about healthcare security from ENISA and some others will go in that sense. And of course, NIS2, the new NIS2 directive will go in that sense. So thanks for the point. Very interesting to see that organization growing. Yeah, so again, all these weak points, we needed to accelerate the remediation and move to the next stage. So again, network segmentation, avoid propagation. Believe me, if you know network segmentation, how hard it is and how painful it is not to cause any disruption, imagine in a hospital full of patients. But I think we did well, and we create those segmented networks. We place all these, let's say, uncompliant devices at least to avoid infection spread. As mobility became a normality, and everything pointed that this will last for years or forever, maybe, we deploy some cloud-based solutions for ensuring we had full visibility on terms of web browsing. So proxy cloud solutions for secure mobility. We had users using proxy cloud solutions before, users who had mobility, but there was a small percentage compared with everyone that had mobility by May, June last year. Another very good move was the automation. There are very good tools that perform attack surface testing in an automated way. Because red teaming on a manual basis, on a human basis, is fantastic, but of course it has limitations. While you have tools that can do it on a 24/7 basis, and it helps us to become permanently attacked by those solutions, identify the weakest spots before others do it. And on the awareness side, we move to ethical phishing exercises, testing our human response to potential attack, and the fine-tuning of ADR rules. So there was a phase 2, where all the acceleration of the weak spots identified were implemented. But again, back in summer, so September is more or less when people come back to the office after summer in Spain, very strange summer, of course, say, okay, well, now we need to consolidate. We have identified weak spots, we have deployed a number of measures, but again, this needs to last. This needs to last for some time. And we need to integrate all the solutions we have deployed into our service, our current service portfolio that we provide to the organization. And we found a very, well, I would not say unexpected, but a very big problem, which was people were exhausted. People were exhausted by the time because it was so intensive. All the permanent attack surface, reveal number of issues that need to be solved on a 24/7 basis. So people and InfoSec teams were absolutely exhausted. And we need to review how can increase our bandwidth. So we were in a more or less, I said in the third bullet, 50-50 model, 50% of staff complemented by 50% contractors. But we thought, no, we need to capitalize all the knowledge acquired and to bring internally that bandwidth to help our exhausted internal teams. So we brought a number of people, a relevant number of people. So we grow our organization, and now we are in a 30-70. To be honest, we are more now on an 80-20 model, being 80% internal staff, organization, let's say internal knowledge, and we support less from contractors. It has some changes, of course, in the financial model as well. You convert basically service-based cost, OPEX, into staff costs. But we thought is the right thing to do because all these things that we need to consolidate looks like it will last for some time. And this reaches to where we are today, which is we have done all the things, we have consolidated the services, but we need to evolve because we will not go back to the previous model. So we know that we need to evolve in certain areas, and which is gain control on all data environments, which links with, again, kind of shadow IT or shadow devices. Those devices that were unmanaged or unreachable is not acceptable. So we need to really put them in proper shape. We are moving and leveraging cloud services because being a very traditional sector and industry, low investment on the internet security, cloud was not really a topic, right? But with the solution we deployed during COVID, like again proxy cloud and solution that gave secure mobility, I think the approach, at least in our company, changed, and we saw no backdrops from a regulation point of view. So we decided to leverage on cloud services because they help us to escalate and integrate heterogeneous environments, as mentioned there. And of course, continue working with the business to move towards an OPEX-based model and champion the cultural change. Still be very close to our business and have our board permanently informed of what is happening and how the controls are performing. So that's very real and personal reflections on everything we lived. The role of regulation here, I think, well, it was a bit static. So regulation, of course, we have HIPAA and we have NIST standards, and we have ENISA and some others, and the NIST directive. But to be honest, they were at the beginning of the pandemic, they were probably not very updated to the current situation, but they are very positive moves within the European Union. So ENISA definitely are focusing very good on healthcare security. There are very interesting initiatives funded by the European Union about how to help hospitals, which again sometimes are very local. They have still no focus on IT and digital, to help them in terms of cybersecurity. And another thing is that's very interesting. So every 2 years, through the guidance of ENISA and the European Cybersecurity Organization, stress tests, pan-European stress tests on a number of sectors are performed. 2 years ago was on the aviation sector. So let's see how resilient they are in terms of cyber attacks, etc. So this year will be on healthcare. So again, there are very positive moves to help the security uplift in the healthcare industry. Again, the European Union Cybersecurity Act, it will help as well, because it will boost our resilience across European Union with the new NIS directive, the NIS 2 directive, and basically healthcare industry, the healthcare sector is covered by the directive. It was covered before in the, let's say, current NIS, but the review of NIS will focus even more. And some criticism that the European Commission had on the NIS adoption by different members in the European Union is that they have not included or nominated relevant companies in each country, because I'm not sure you know the NIS directive. It's applicable to all European members. They need to transpose that directive because it's not like GDPR that is directly applicable for each country. No, the NIS being that directive, you need to transpose to local law, and once transposed, the government through a nominated entity need to include companies. For example, say, hey, Sanitas, you are in the healthcare sector, you are a critical company under the NIS directive. These are all the requirements you need to comply with. Well, governments, and believe me, in Spain, we have failed. So the government has failed in that. They have not nominated many relevant companies in some sectors. They have nominated basically finance sector, energy, water supply, etc., but not many others. While the new NIS directive will include all these healthcare companies. So, all in all, what have we learned so far in this journey? Everything that happened, this little bit of history, attacks, how we came in control, and what happened with COVID. Well, we think it basically that these 4 pillars we need to have in mind, which is they're very operational, but I think is the right word, which is protect your endpoint and infrastructure. So again, understand your threat and attack surface, which links with the medical devices we were mentioning. Understand which are those devices, where they are, do something with them, right? And if you can't simply do anything with them, well, at least be transparent and on the risk that they imply. Which links to the second point, which is identify all the key assets in the environment. Of course, patching and avoid outdated software versions, which is something traditionally overlooked in again, medical devices, and go far beyond traditional antivirus, which has proven to be a pure commodity. We need to move to behavioral-based solutions like EDR, virtual patching, and behavioral analytics. Isolate environments, apply all the network segmentation to make sure that one environment cannot propagate an infection to others, and not only within your company, to others, because as mentioned initially, interoperability is something that's happening, and we are integrated with a number of with some other healthcare providers that we collaborate mutually. So you need to ensure that something that happens on their side cannot affect you, and the other way around, right? So that's about isolation and network segmentation. And of course, well, secure methods for remote access, and well, categorized endpoints and applied all the network traffic analysis. So everything about endpoint and infrastructure protection. So the second pillar is about awareness. As mentioned, awareness is not a new thing. I don't know, it's years since we are talking about the human factor and the weakest link and blah, blah, blah. But that's still true, of course. So regular awareness programs, keep them updated on what is happening. We found it's very good to be transparent with them. And if we see a critical and elevated risk, be transparent with them. Be transparent with them. Hey, we are in different one because of this, and this is the role you play, right? If you can get that discussion in the board discussion as a permanent or regular topic, even the better. So you can show really metrics on how are you making an impact on the organization, but uplifting the awareness. But another thing is you need to understand their motivations and employees, because it's not that people do not want deliberately not to comply with security policies. Sometimes it's they don't know how, or they don't understand the need. So that's why you need to issue clear guidelines to employees. One of the things that we moved in Sanitas is we establish objectives that goes to your bonus. You know, probably it's very common that you have a fixed salary, and on top of the fixed salary you have a bonus scheme, right? Which is based on company performance, profit, revenue, NPS, whatever. So we introduce another factor, which is risk management. In all sense, it's not about just cybersecurity risk management, in all sense, but it's depending on how you comply with the role you play in reducing risks for the company, you will get your bonus or not. So it basically goes into your pocket, goes into your money, your bonus. It's a kind of we don't want to make this in as a punitive measure, but it worked well because now the risk discussion and how your role contributes to risk discussion, it's in every day discussion in operational employees, right? Well, the third pillar is about best practice and regulation, which links with forums and what we discuss about being part of organizations, Health ISAC, ENISA, and some others, which is, well, you need to apply and understand what is happening. All these groups participate, right? And will drive this collaborative approach, right? Which is again difficult considering all the workload we have, but we need to find space for doing that. And to be honest, work with vendors as well, because sometimes very big medical device vendors are probably they need to get told, they need to hear from cybersecurity leaders in the healthcare industry or in relevant groups like again ENISA or Health ISAC about, hey guys, you should comply with this. In the next release of your product, on the new product you releases, these are the things you need to comply with. So drive that, champion that as well. And that links with the last pillar about research and industry. The industry has a role to play, so need to invest in information security and adopt vulnerability disclosure policies, which I think is in a positive momentum now, because traditionally CVSS vulnerabilities for medical devices were not really common, while if you look in the CVSS database, you will find more and more manufacturers of device or medical devices that have published CVSS vulnerabilities. Some of them are critical, but that's the first thing. They acknowledge they have an issue and they're transparent about it. And of course, again, promote this collaboration and information sharing across the industry. Well, that was a lot. I've been really, really fast. I hope it was not too fast. Believe me, I can speak faster in Spanish than in English, so you can imagine. Yeah, I'd love to hear some of your questions, if any.
Yeah, we have a question. Sander Kreuze.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting, Ivan. I have a question. What would you say were the main drivers for the board that they created, or that created a sense of urgency so that you could run your security program?
Mhm. I think just to see themselves in a situation where you can't really provide health, manage the health of your patients, because as everything relies on technology, just to think that they would not be able, hospital would be able to treat people in such a critical moment, with all the news that we mentioned before, I think that really worried them. You know, a very common question that go very often, sometimes more often than they would like to, believe me, to the board. And the question has moved. Before, the question was even, can this happen to us? It was the typical question because they saw all this news. And of course, the answer you can imagine is, well, yes, it can happen to us. Oh my gosh, then do whatever you need to do to avoid that to happen. But now, the question is not anymore, can this happen to us? The question is, even, do you know what we need to do when that happened to us? And I think that shows an evolution on the board mindset, because now they assume that we have done good things on protection, but they want to know what are we going to do even if that happens. So I think, again, what drives that behavior, that change of mindset, is to see all the news that was happening in the healthcare industry. Just for you, just when this news about the woman dying in a German hospital about the cyber attack, I got like 15 mails from leaders in the hospitals, saying, "Ivan, oh my gosh, tell me this is joke." So just that reflection make them act.
So that would say that there is already a higher level of security awareness within the board and senior management, if they are aware of these news items.
Absolutely. I think that's, I'm 6 years in my current role, and I have seen probably 3 waves of mindset change. One is, again, 2015, where with Anthem data breach, and again, was a difficult a year, again, with WannaCry, but the biggest wave when the awareness came top was everything cyber attacks in COVID times.
Okay, thank you, Ivan.
Oh, thank you for the question.
Ivan, looking at the time, I also want to thank you. I'm also noting that several people are already thanking you for your presentation and your time here, and willing to give a presentation from Spain here in the Netherlands. So, on behalf of Noria and Isaac, thank you for this presentation. And everybody, have a nice evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I hope it was interesting. Again, really a pleasure to be with all of you today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.